What happens when two of the biggest action stars with very different philosophies go head to head in the ultimate rivalry? Steven Seagal versus Jean-Claude Van Damme.
What happens when two of Hollywood's biggest action stars clash for real, not in a movie, but in front of stunned A-listers at a private party? The entertainment world has seen countless on-screen battles, but few real-life showdowns have captured the public imagination, like the actual, unscripted confrontation between Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal. These weren't just actors playing tough guys. They were legitimate martial artists with years of training, competition records, and reputations on the line. And the real fight you never saw didn't happen in a movie theater or on a soundstage. It happened behind the scenes, in front of witnesses, and what went down has become the stuff of legend. This is the real story of the fight everyone missed, and why it still matters. The seeds of war. In the early 1990s, Hollywood's action film industry was at its peak, and two martial artists were rising rapidly to fame, each with a distinct persona and background. Jean-Claude Van Damme, famously known as the Muscles from Brussels, earned recognition for his exceptional kicking techniques and trademark splits. He built his career from humble beginnings, working as a pizza delivery man in Hollywood while pursuing his acting dream. In contrast, Steven Seagal arrived in America with the enigmatic claims of training in Japan and alleged ties to influential figures. The first sign of conflict between the two emerged during a televised interview. While appearing on the Arsenio Hall show, Steven Seagal was asked for his opinion of Jean-Claude Van Damme. Rather than offering a neutral or respectful response, Seagal openly questioned Van Damme's credibility as a fighter. "I think that's a matter of opinion. He was champion anywhere," Seagal said on television. "I'm not being catty or anything. I wish the guy all the best, but there are an awful lot of people who say that's not true." It was a bold swipe that planted the seed for the real fight between Van Damme and Seagal, one that fans would later realize they missed unfolding behind the scenes. This public remark struck Van Damme deeply. Without any personal interaction between them, Seagal had openly cast doubt on Van Damme's professional record. Van Damme had spent years building his reputation through kickboxing tournaments across Europe, earning every victory through genuine competition. Seagal's statement undermined this hard-won credibility. However, Seagal's comments extended beyond mere fighting credentials. They directly challenged Van Damme's honor. In the world of martial arts, respect and reputation are paramount. To question another fighter's achievements without direct knowledge or experience is to label them as fraudulent, an accusation Van Damme could not ignore. This wasn't just movie star drama. It was the start of a real-world feud that would spiral into a legendary fight most people never saw. The media seized upon this growing tension. Two authentic martial artists, both major film stars, were now embroiled in a personal dispute. Reporters repeatedly asked each man for comments regarding the other. While Van Damme initially responded with restraint, calling Seagal a wonderful guy in interviews, his demeanor suggested otherwise. Beneath the polite words, he was preparing for a confrontation that would be personal and unavoidable. This situation had evolved beyond a simple celebrity disagreement. It was now a matter of pride, integrity, and professional legitimacy. Van Damme had invested years to establish himself as a genuine martial artist and was not prepared to let Seagal diminish that with a careless public remark. Looking back, it was the beginning of the real fight you missed. One that wouldn't play out on screen but at a party, in whispers, and through challenges that never made it to the ring. The foundation was laid for a confrontation that would become legendary in Hollywood history. Neither man suspected their inevitable encounter would take place sooner than expected. The boiling point. As the early 1990s rolled on, the tension between Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal was building. Every interview seemed to add more heat to their rivalry, and Hollywood was starting to notice the drama between these two action stars. Van Damme was getting tired of Seagal's comments about him. It's one thing to have a disagreement with someone, but Seagal kept bringing up Van Damme's fighting record in interviews. Every time a reporter asked Seagal about other action stars, he would find a way to question whether Van Damme was a real champion. The martial arts community was watching this drama unfold. Other fighters and trainers started choosing sides. Some supported Van Damme, pointing to his actual tournament wins and competition record. They knew he had fought in the ring, and proved himself against real opponents. Others were curious about Seagal's claims. He talked about his time in Japan and his Aikido training, but some people started asking questions. Had Steven Seagal ever been in a real fight, the kind that couldn't be edited or choreographed like a movie? His on-screen moves looked impressive, but was he ready for a real-world clash like the one that was brewing with Van Damme? The legendary martial artist and actor Chuck Norris was asked about both men. When it came to Van Damme, Norris had good things to say. "Jean-Claude's pretty good," he said. "He trained with me for a year and a half when he came over from Brussels, so I know him quite well." But when asked about Steven Seagal, Norris was less certain. "I don't truthfully know. I don't know Steven. I've only met him once." He pointed out that most of Seagal's movie fights used quick cuts and close-ups, making it hard to see what he was really doing. This kind of talk was driving Van Damme crazy. He was being questioned by a man who had never stepped into a real fight with him, and yet kept acting like he'd already won one. It felt backward and unfair. The media loved every minute of this drama. Reporters would ask Van Damme about Seagal in every interview, hoping to get him to say something explosive. Van Damme usually stayed polite, but you could see the frustration building in his eyes. The pressure was building toward an explosion. Van Damme was a competitor who had spent his whole life proving himself in real fights. Seagal was making claims about being superior, but fans were beginning to wonder, if Seagal was so confident, why hadn't the real fight happened yet? Both men were at the height of their fame. Van Damme's movies like Universal Soldier and Time Cop were massive hits. Seagal's films like Under Siege also did great at the box office. They were both successful, famous, and tired of hearing about each other. The stage was set, the tension was unbearable, and what came next would finally reveal the truth behind the fight between Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal that most people missed. That moment would come at a party in Miami. The party that changed everything. The real fight between Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal happened at the most unexpected place, a fancy party at Sylvester Stallone's house in Miami. This wasn't some dark street or martial arts tournament. It was a star-filled Hollywood event that turned into the scene of one of the most famous moments in action movie history. It was 1997, and Stallone was hosting one of his big, famous parties. All the top action stars were there, including both Van Damme and Seagal. Neither man probably thought they would run into each other that night, but fate had other plans. People were laughing, having drinks, and chatting about movies in a beautiful mansion in Miami full of actors, directors, and producers. Then, across the room, Van Damme and Seagal saw each other. According to Stallone, who shared this story with FHM magazine, Van Damme had finally had enough. He was tired of Seagal claiming he could kick his ass. Seeing Seagal at the party was the final trigger for the fight fans had only imagined, but almost missed. Van Damme walked straight up to Seagal in front of everyone. The room likely went quiet as people noticed what was happening. Two of the biggest martial arts stars in the world were now standing face to face, with years of tension between them. "Come outside," Van Damme said to Seagal. He was challenging Seagal to step into the backyard and prove who was the better fighter. This was no longer about movies or talk shows. It was about settling the fight that fans never got to see on screen. But then, something surprising happened. After all his tough talk and interviews, Seagal backed down. According to Stallone, Seagal made his excuses and left. Right there, in front of Hollywood's elite, the real fight between Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal was seconds from happening, and Seagal walked away. It was embarrassing for Seagal and frustrating for Van Damme, who had waited years to finish this. But Van Damme wasn't done yet. According to Stallone, Van Damme tracked him down at a nightclub and challenged him again. Even after Seagal left the party, Van Damme went looking for him to settle things once and for all. This shows just how serious Van Damme was. He wasn't going to let Seagal escape that easily. If Seagal didn't want to fight at the party, Van Damme would find him elsewhere. Stallone summed it up perfectly. Van Damme was too strong. Seagal wanted none of it. Coming from Rocky himself, that spoke volumes. That party at Stallone's house became legendary in Hollywood. It was the night when the real fight between Van Damme and Seagal almost happened. and the night the world saw who backed up their words and who backed down. The chase through Miami. What happened after Steven Seagal left Stallone's party would become the most talked about part of the real fight between Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal. Van Damme wasn't about to let Seagal walk away without consequences, and what followed was like something out of one of their action movies. According to Stallone, Van Damme was berserk after Seagal left the party. For years, he had listened to Steven Seagal question his fighting record and toss around arrogant remarks. Finally, Van Damme had his chance to settle things face to face, and Seagal had just walked away. But Van Damme wasn't done. He found out that Seagal had gone to a nightclub in Miami and went after him. This wasn't just a war of words anymore. It was about pride, reputation, and proving who the real fighter was. Inside the nightclub, music pumping, people dancing, Jean-Claude Van Damme, the muscles from Brussels, stepped in. Not for a movie scene, but for a showdown fans never got to see. He confronted Seagal again, offering him another chance to fight. "Come outside," Van Damme repeated, just like at the party. But once again, according to the witnesses, Steven Seagal refused to fight. The man who had spent years claiming he could beat Van Damme in a real fight now had 2 chances in one night, and turned both down. For a rivalry built on toughness, the silence spoke volumes. Van Damme later shared what really happened that night in a 2010 interview. "No fight was made, just a little pushing. Because it was a beautiful house. It had beautiful furniture. I was pissed a little and said to Steven, 'Come outside.'" He was being respectful of Stallone's beautiful house and expensive furniture. Van Damme didn't want to cause damage to his friend's property, which is why he asked Seagal to come outside. And then came the most jaw-dropping detail. Van Damme added, "I waited 2 hours, but he never came. Steven was very disrespectful that night." 2 hours. That's how long Van Damme waited outside, ready to back up everything he'd ever said, while Seagal stayed out of sight. For Van Damme, this wasn't just about ego, it was about honor. For Seagal, it became a missed moment that would haunt his image. This wasn't just another Hollywood feud. This was the real fight that never happened, and it revealed everything fans needed to know. Van Damme was ready. Seagal was not. The chase through Miami that night became legendary not because fists flew, but because, when it finally mattered, everyone saw who showed up and who ran. The $20 million challenge. Just when it seemed like the story of the real fight between Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal couldn't get any crazier, one of the most astonishing offers in sports entertainment history surfaced. In a 2023 interview with The Telegraph, Van Damme revealed that Sony Pictures co-president and CEO Peter Guber had once offered both action stars $20 million each to fight in Las Vegas, live, in front of millions of fans. This wasn't just backroom drama anymore. A major movie Hollywood studio was willing to pay $40 million total to turn the legendary rivalry you missed into a real, sanctioned fight. Not a movie, not a rumor, a headline-making showdown that could finally settle the score. The idea made perfect sense from a business standpoint. Both men were at the height of their fame in the 1990s. Van Damme's movies were making millions at the box office, and so were Seagal's films. Fans around the world were already talking about who would win if they ever fought for real. A live event in Las Vegas would have been the biggest martial arts spectacle ever. It would have settled the question once and for all. Van Damme was ready to accept the offer. He had wanted to face Steven Seagal in a real fight since their confrontation at Stallone's party. Now he could do it legally, safely, and for more money than either had made from a single film. It was everything he'd been waiting for. But Steven Seagal said no. According to Van Damme, this was actually the 3rd time that Seagal had refused to fight him. The first time was at Stallone's party in Miami. The second time was at the nightclub later that night. Now, even with $20 million on the table, Steven Seagal still wouldn't step into the ring. That moment flipped the narrative. Van Damme wasn't just running his mouth. He was ready to fight. Publicly. Professionally. And Seagal? He was still nowhere to be found. Seagal's refusal to accept the $20 million challenge raised serious questions about his tough comments in interviews. If he really believed he could beat Van Damme, why wouldn't he take the fight? $20 million is life-changing money, and it would have proven his point once and for all. The offer from Sony Pictures showed just how big this rivalry had become. This wasn't just entertainment industry gossip anymore. It was a cultural phenomenon in which major corporations were willing to invest huge amounts of money. Learning about the $20 million challenge was both exciting and disappointing for fans. It was exciting because it showed the stakes were real. Disappointing because the real fight they'd been waiting for never happened. In the end, Seagal's repeated refusals only boosted Van Damme's legacy. He looked like the true martial artist he'd always claimed to be, willing to step up, face his rival, and put everything on the line. Meanwhile, Seagal's silence would follow him for years, leaving behind the unanswered question at the heart of this story. What would have happened if Steven Seagal had just said yes? The truth behind the tough talk. After years of build-up, challenges, and missed opportunities, the real fight between Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal never happened as fans expected. But the truth about what did happen reveals everything you need to know about who these men really are and why this rivalry still matters. Van Damme has been remarkably honest about his encounters with Steven Seagal over the years. In multiple interviews, he shared details about their confrontations, always maintaining that he wanted to settle things like martial artists should, with respect and action, not just words. While Seagal used interviews to question Van Damme's fighting past, Van Damme kept offering him chances to back his words with action. Years after the incidents in Miami, Van Damme ran into Seagal at Planet Hollywood. Instead of avoiding him or continuing their feud, Van Damme decided to try a different approach. He walked up to Steven Seagal and said, "Hey Steven, you speak bad about me on TV. Why?" This shows Van Damme's character. Even after all the insults and avoided confrontations, he was still willing to talk to Seagal face to face. He wasn't looking for trouble. He just wanted to understand why Steven Seagal kept attacking him in interviews. According to Van Damme, Seagal's response was strange. Van Damme described it as Cro-Magnon-esque mutterings, meaning Seagal mumbled or made unclear sounds instead of giving a real answer. But then something interesting happened. I said, "Come on, look, I'm a nice guy. Am I a bad guy?" I shook his hand and he relaxed, Van Damme explained. That moment of calm, after years of tension, revealed something deeper than any showdown ever could. Van Damme's final comment about the encounter was very mature. "Hey, it's okay if he wants to say things. It's not my problem." This shows that Van Damme had grown beyond needing to prove himself through fighting. He was confident enough in his abilities and reputation to let Seagal's comments slide. However, the most telling part of this story is how differently the two men handled their rivalry over the years. Van Damme has always been open about what happened, sharing details in interviews and being honest about his own feelings and actions. On the other hand, Steven Seagal has rarely addressed their rivalry directly. When asked about the incidents in Miami, he either denied they happened or gave vague responses that don't match what witnesses like Stallone have said. This difference in how they've handled the situation tells us everything about their real fight. Van Damme has always been willing to face his challenges head-on, whether about his personal life, career struggles, or rivalries with other martial artists. The truth is that their real fight wasn't just about one night in Miami or one rejected challenge in Las Vegas. It was about two very different approaches to being a martial artist and an action star. Van Damme represented the traditional martial arts values of respect, hard work, and proving yourself through action. Seagal's approach was more about mystique and reputation management. He preferred maintaining his tough guy image through interviews and carefully controlled movie roles rather than testing himself in real confrontations. The real fight between Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal was won not through punches or kicks but through character and consistency. Van Damme's willingness to face challenges and be honest about his experiences made him the winner in the court of public opinion. And that's why the real fight between Van Damme and Seagal, the one you missed, had a winner all along. The winner without fighting. The real fight between Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal may never have happened in a ring or cage, but there was definitely a winner. And that winner wasn't determined by who threw the best punch or landed the most kicks. It was determined by who showed the most character when it mattered most. Over the years since their famous confrontations, both men's reputations have gone in very different directions. Van Damme has managed to maintain and even improve his standing with fans and the martial arts community, while Steven Seagal's reputation has taken hit after hit. Part of this comes down to how each man has handled his personal struggles. Van Damme has been incredibly open about his battles with addiction, his multiple marriages, and his career's ups and downs. In interviews, he's talked honestly about his mistakes and what he's learned from them. This honesty has made Van Damme more likable to fans. People appreciate celebrities being real with them, instead of pretending to be perfect. Van Damme's willingness to admit his flaws and show his human side has actually made him stronger in the public eye. Steven Seagal has taken the opposite approach. He maintained his mysterious, tough guy persona, even when faced with controversies and allegations. Instead of addressing issues directly, he's often denied them or avoided discussing them. The difference is clear in how fans talk about both men today. Online polls consistently show Van Damme as the fan favorite, not just in terms of who would win a fight, but who they respect more as a person and martial artist. The career paths of both men also tell this story. Van Damme has continued to evolve as an actor, taking on more challenging and self-aware roles. His performance in JCVD earned critical praise for its honest portrayal of a faded action star trying to reconnect with his humanity. Meanwhile, Steven Seagal's recent movies have mostly been direct-to-video releases that feel stuck in the past. He hasn't shown the same willingness to grow or change as Van Damme. Even their recent public appearances show the difference. Van Damme's viral Volvo commercial, in which he performed his famous split between two moving trucks, showed that he could still laugh at himself while demonstrating incredible skill. The real fight between Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal ended up being a fight for hearts and minds, rather than a physical confrontation. And in that fight, Van Damme's combination of skill, honesty, and willingness to face challenges without throwing a single punch made him the better man. So, what do you think about this legendary Hollywood rivalry? Who do you think would win the real fight? Let us know in the comments which action star you think would come out on top if this battle ever happened.